So when it comes to the Trump administration, I think like we are kind of falling for the idea that the bad is just all Donald Trump. I don't believe that, right? Donald Trump is who he is, right? But there are actual problems that are going on that are almost separate from Trump. And for me, it has to do with a lot of the administrators and a lot of the secretaries that he has, because what they have shown is that they are promoting the ideas of business, corporations, and the neglect of the government above all else. And that's why, people like RFK particularly irk me, because he is going against hundreds of years of literal science when it comes to illnesses and when it comes to vaccinations, right? He disregards that because he wants to promote a particular agenda, right? And then he just brings in people that disregard the history of science and disease within the United States. And that's why people like Lee Zeldin also annoy the hell out of me, because Lee Zeldin he was a representative. I think he ran for governor of New York at one time, and he's now the EPA administrator. And under his tenure, right, he has basically taken away some of the protections that the EPA is trying to provide, because we know that business and the chemicals that we use endanger our society. There are inherent risks to it being used. And I'm not someone who's going to say, oh, we can't use any of these, because for some of these, they are necessary to the industries that, we use in our daily lives, right? But we should always be aware of the risk, and we shouldn't sit back and be like, well, we are going to ignore the risk until it gets to a point. We should be able to always be ahead of the consequences, and to be able to acknowledge whether or not it's worth the risk to use this particular I'd say process or chemical, or to expose American citizens to it in this way. And under his kind of tenure, you see that he's allowing more and more dangerous chemicals to be exposed into the actual air, right? We're talking about lessening the rules about like mercury exposure or mercury pollution. Talking about how he wants to make coal-fired plants more viable in the United States of America, instead of going towards what the actual power companies have been pushing for, which is less coal, but more solar, battery, wind power combined with oil and gas within our society. And they're like, no, let's go back to how we used to operate in the 1800s when coal was king, right? And like they go to these past ideas that we have to go back to when literal people were suffering because of the materials that we're using back then. We should be more evolved, right? We can use better things, but they keep trying to go back, right? There's a reason why we don't use coal. There's a reason why pre-industrial countries use coal, right? It's cheap, but it also damages your environment and lessens your citizens' health outcomes, right? And if anyone denies that, you're dumb, right? I also have a problem with the ways in which they affect kind of the economics of how to determine what are the risks to pollution, right? Because as we know, or hopefully we know, the EPA changed the calculations for like the worth of a human life when it comes to pollution, right? I think like under the Biden administration, the numbers were around $10 million, right? Around like the statistical value of a life, right? Basically saying that if we don't regulate and we don't make people's lives safer, this is the worth of someone's life that you are endangering, right? And it talks about how basically by saying that that's the worth of life, you can justify more regulations and making sure that you can actually calculate the health benefits of keeping Americans safe. And Lee Zeldin under the EPA basically said we're not going to do that. And like there are some people who are like, we should, the human life is priceless. I think that means you don't consider the easiest way to convince people how to follow through on certain policies, right? It's an economic thing. If you give people a number, it is so much easier to calculate either the benefits or the deficits of going towards a particular policy, right? And like that's not even the last of it either. Considering the fact that I'm just looking up this, they're trying to target and take away protections from the Clean Air and Water Act, right? Trying to change the definition about what the waters of the United States are, which could basically strip safeguards from 80% of wetlands, right? And 59% of streams in the United States. They want to do a a new rule which limits the ability of states to block pipelines and other energy products, right? They want to remove pollution controls. And so essentially, they're trying to make sure that there's no idea that the federal government can actually limit the exposure that Americans have to unsafe chemicals and pollutants in our environment, which to me violates like the whole purpose of the federal government, which is to literally ensure the health of its people, right? Remember, the whole purpose of the United States is to say that power comes from the people. Without the people, without their health, your government cannot sustain itself. It does not exist. It will crash and burn if you don't prioritize your people. And that is why, like, I have a major problem with the Trump administration, because it's obvious, right, from a lot of their actions that the people always come second, right? And I see that through our policies towards science. I see that through our policies towards health and our policies towards the environment. Now, I'm not like a tree hugging hippie, but the whole point is, it's like, I don't want to live in a place that says like a corporation can pollute waterways and it doesn't matter and a state can't stop them, right? That's just setting us up to live in terrible conditions. And I like being able to live a stress-free, healthy type of life. And it doesn't make any sense that in the richest country in the world, right, that we have these sorts of problems and these sorts of considerations. Because what does that do in the long run, right? Like, if you have a sick and decrepit populace, how are they going to participate in the society that makes you rich? And that's why, I don't get how these people actually think, right? Because what happens if no one is healthy enough to actually participate? It falls apart. But like, they'll be able to laugh it in their bunker until, people find out where it is and they come after them. I don't get the next point. And that's why these people under the Trump administration, they don't make sense to me, because it's obvious that for the most part, Trump is hands off, right? These people are allowed to do what they want, following the American First Policy Institute and Project 2025. And it seems as though, regardless of these people saying American First, they actually prioritize ideas that actually put people second and corporations first, which is not how it should work. And a lot of our problems have actually come from the ways in which we consider corporate power, right? We can even go back to shareholder primacy from like Ford v. Dodge, if anyone knows that case. Like, a lot of our problems come from that. And so, like, when it comes to people like Lee Zeldin, that's my major problem. Everything that he's promoting is not trying to make the science more robust, more targeted. He's literally just removing the science and allowing corporations to do what they want, and the people and their the side effects that they suffered, it's just the cost of doing business. And that doesn't make sense in a country that was founded on the ideas that America was founded on. So I'm going to keep talking about Lee Zeldin and how him threatening the Irish program is not a good thing, and how there are certain necessities that can be made to improve it. But the Trump administration will not do that. Like, considering that Donald Trump can do what he wants, some of the things that they are doing are just going to ruin any historical remembrance of this man. He always talks about how he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. There's so many things that he could be doing that he could just earn it. But him and the people around him just make things awful. Let me not even add also our former labor secretary, I can't talk, Lori Chavez, I think, DeRemer, who bragged about allowing Elon Musk to cut anti-slavery funds from the Department of Labor, and then they bragged about it. Like, everything just makes things worse. And then I'm not even going to get into that. It's just everything that they do is designed to make things more unaffordable, make life less safe, and to make it more, I would say, dangerous for American citizens.